She came to kill the human blamed for stealing her sons. But when the cabin door shattered open, her royal heirs were sleeping safely on his chest. The alien queen came to Earth to kill one human. Her sons had vanished in a frozen frontier zone, and every signal pointed to a cabin buried under the storm. But when Queen Saravel found him, he was not running. Her warship tore through the clouds like a black blade. Snow whipped across the mountains below, hiding the wreckage of a royal escort ship and the tracks of something no Dominion officer wanted to name. On the bridge, no one spoke. Saravel stood in silver war armor, her pale face lit by the red glow of emergency screens. 3 hours ago, her sons, Kale and Oren, had disappeared. The trackers found shattered metal, royal blood, and one human heat signature moving away from the crash. One human. That was all it took to turn a grieving mother into a weapon. "Bring him alive," she said softly. "I want him to know why he dies." Miles below, in a lonely wooden cabin, Elias Ward sat beside a dying fire. His shoulder was bleeding. His hands were shaking from cold and exhaustion. Across his lap, wrapped inside his heavy coat, 2 small alien boys slept against his chest. He had not slept since he found them. He had not even closed his eyes. Outside, something moved in the snow. Then the cabin door exploded inward. Wood splintered across the floor. Armed royal guards rushed in first, rifles raised, armor steaming from the cold. Behind them came the queen, beautiful, terrifying, and ready to tear the world apart. Elias did not reach for his rifle. He did not beg. He only lifted one hand and whispered, "Quiet." They just fell asleep. The queen froze. Her sons were alive, and they were holding on to the human like he was the safest thing in the universe. Then Oren stirred, buried his face deeper into Elias's coat, and whispered in fear, "Mother, don't let them take him." Before that cabin door ever shattered, the Vaya Dominion believed humanity was a mistake waiting to be corrected. To them, Earth was not a world of warriors. It was a noisy blue planet full of fragile creatures who built weapons from fear and called survival courage. Queen Saravel had tolerated humans because they were useful at the edges of empire. They mined dead moons. They repaired broken stations. They lived in places no sane species wanted. Frozen zones. Poisoned valleys. Gravity wells that crushed alien lungs. That was the first thing the Dominion never understood. Humans did not survive because their worlds were kind. They survived because they were not. The Queen's 2 sons, Prince Kale and Prince Oren, were never supposed to be near Earth at all. Their escort ship had been traveling under royal silence, moving through a hidden border route known only to the highest commanders in Saravel's court. It was meant to be safe. It was meant to be secret. Then the escort vanished. No warning beacon. No ransom signal. No diplomatic demand. Only wreckage. The first images reached Saravel while she was standing before her war council. A royal transport split open across a snowfield. Dead guards half buried in ice. Burn marks across the hull that no human weapon should have made. And then one detail that changed everything. Tiny footprints leading away from the crash. Her sons had survived. For 11 minutes, hope lived in that room. Then the trackers found a second trail beside theirs. Human boot prints. One set. Deep. Heavy. Moving toward the northern forest. The council needed no more evidence. Lord Varesh, the Queen's oldest military advisor, stepped forward and called it what everyone feared. A human abduction. He spoke of Earth's defiance. Of frontier rebels. Of how humans had always smiled while sharpening knives in the dark. He told Saravel that mercy had made her look weak, and a grieving mother heard just enough truth to believe the lie. Within an hour, Dominion warships moved into Earth's orbit. Below them, in the frozen wilderness, the real story was already bleeding into the snow. Kale and Oren had crawled from their escape pod with frost burning their hands and terror locking their voices. They were royal children, raised inside golden walls, guarded since birth, taught that humans were dangerous animals with clever eyes. Then the forest answered around them. Branches cracked. Something moved beyond the burning wreckage. Oren began to cry for his mother. That sound carried farther than any beacon. Elias Ward heard it from the ridge above his cabin. He had been checking traps before the storm buried them. Alone. Armed. Used to silence. Used to not trusting anything that fell from the sky. When he reached the crash, he saw two alien boys in royal clothing, shaking beside a dead guard. For one long second, he raised his rifle. Then Kale stepped in front of his younger brother. Not to attack. To protect him. Elias lowered the gun. Whatever war existed between stars, it had not reached those children yet. He wrapped them in his coat and carried them toward the only light left in the storm. But behind him, under the screaming wind, black armored shapes began moving through the trees. Someone else had survived the crash. And they were not there to rescue the princes. The Dominion believed humans were dangerous because they were violent. They were wrong. Humans were dangerous because when every logical choice said walk away, they stepped forward. Elias Ward dragged the two alien princes into his cabin just as the storm swallowed the crash site behind them. Kale could still walk, but barely. Oren was shaking so badly his small fingers could not close around the blanket Elias gave him. The boys watched everything. The rifle above the fireplace. The hunting wire near the door. The reinforced shutters. The old scars across Elias's hands. To them, the cabin looked primitive. To Elias, it was ready. He had built it for winters that killed careless men. For wolves that came when meat ran low. For border raiders who thought a man alone was an easy target. But tonight, it would have to survive something worse. Kale kept his back against the wall, trying to stand like royalty even though fear had drained the color from his face. "Are we prisoners?" he asked. Elias pushed another log into the fire. "No." "Then why did you bring us here?" Elias looked at the younger one, Oren, curled under the coat and staring at the door like death itself might knock. "Because children don't last long in that cold." Kale did not know what to do with that answer. In the Dominion, mercy always had a price. Protection meant ownership. Kindness meant strategy. No one helped without expecting something in return. But the human gave them warmth before questions. Water before suspicion. Safety before demands. That was humanity's hidden advantage. Not better ships. Not stronger weapons. Not numbers. A refusal to let the helpless die just because they belonged to the wrong side. Then Elias heard it. A soft click outside the cabin. Not ice. Not wood. Metal. His face changed instantly. The boys saw it happen. One moment he was exhausted and wounded. The next, every part of him became quiet, focused, and dangerous. He blew out the lantern. The cabin dropped into firelight and shadow. "Under the floor," he said. Kale froze. "What?" Elias lifted a hidden trapdoor beneath the rug. "Now." Oren looked at the black space below and shook his head. Elias crouched, lowering his voice. "I know you don't trust me. That's fine. But if you stay where they can see you, you die." That did it. Kale pulled Oren into the crawl space. Elias closed the trapdoor just as the first red targeting beam slid across the window. The assassins came in silence. 5 of them. Black Dominion armor. Pulse rifles. Royal-grade blades. Their suits were built for palace coups and clean executions. They had killed guards aboard the escort ship. They had brought down a royal transport. They had followed 2 children through a storm with one purpose. Finish the heirs. Leave the bodies. Blame Earth. They expected a frightened human with stolen princes. Instead, they entered a home built by a man who had spent his whole life surviving things stronger than him. The first assassin stepped through the door and vanished. A hunting wire snapped tight around his ankle, and the floor gave way beneath him. He dropped hard into the storage pit below, armor cracking against stone. The second fired through the window. Elias shot the oil lamp above the sill. Fire burst outward in a bright orange flash, blinding the assassin's visor and turning his perfect aim into panic. The third climbed onto the roof. Elias waited until the weight crossed the weak beam, then slammed his shoulder into the support post. The ceiling broke open. Snow, wood, and alien armor crashed into the room. Beneath the floor, Oren covered his mouth with both hands. Kale listened to the sounds above them. The storm, the gunfire, the heavy breathing of the human moving through darkness. "He's going to die," Oren whispered. Kale did not answer, because he thought so too. Then one assassin found the trapdoor. The blade came down through the boards, missing Oren's face by inches. The younger prince screamed. Elias crossed the cabin like a shadow. The assassin turned, but the human was already there. The pulse blade tore across Elias's shoulder. He did not stop. He slammed the assassin into the fireplace stones, grabbed the broken rifle from the floor, and drove the butt into the alien's helmet until the visor cracked black. Then silence fell. Only the wind remained. Elias stood over the trapdoor, bleeding, shaking, still breathing. He opened it. Kale and Oren looked up at him like they were seeing something their empire had no word for. Not a captor. Not a beast. A shield. Elias reached down. "Come on," he said. "Fire's still warm." Oren climbed out first. And this time, he did not hide behind his brother. He went straight into the human's arms. That was when the cabin roof began to tremble. A red light appeared on Kale's wristband. Then another. Then the entire device started flashing. The boys went pale. Kale whispered, "That is the bloodline recovery protocol." Elias turned his head. "What does it do?" Neither prince answered at first. Then Oren said, shaking, "If royal heirs are not recovered before the timer ends, the nearest Dominion fleet purges the zone." Elias looked toward the sky. Above the storm clouds, something massive moved. The assassins outside suddenly stopped firing. They had seen it too. And deeper in the woods, a new signal activated. One that had been hidden beneath the crash wreckage the whole time. A voice came through Kale's wristband. Cold. Familiar. Royal. Begin final phase. Blame the human. Elias went still. The princes stared at him. Outside, engines thundered overhead. And for the first time that night, Elias reached for the rifle beside the door. Elias reached for the rifle beside the door. Not because he thought it could stop a Dominion fleet. Because it was the only thing between two children and the empire that had already decided they were worth sacrificing. Kale's wristband kept flashing red. 10 minutes. 9 minutes. 8. Outside, the storm bent under the weight of descending engines. The trees shook. Snow lifted from the ground in ghostly waves. Through the broken windows, Elias saw blue searchlights cutting through the forest, sweeping over the dead assassins, the crash trail, and finally the cabin. Oren clutched Elias's coat. "Is mother coming?" he whispered. Elias looked at the boy's pale face. "I think so." Kale shook his head. "She will not listen. Not if Varesh spoke first." That name made the cabin colder. Elias turned. "Who is Varesh?" Before Kale could answer, the sky tore open. A royal dropship slammed into the snow outside, its landing thrusters melting ice into steam. Armed Dominion guards poured out in formation, their rifles locked on the cabin. Behind them came a figure in silver armor, tall, beautiful, and terrifying beneath the storm. Queen Saravel. Her face showed no fear, only fury held together by royal discipline. Elias stepped into the doorway with the rifle low, not pointed, but ready. The guards shouted in a language he did not understand. Every weapon lifted. Then Saravel saw the blood on his shoulder. Then the broken cabin. Then the two small shapes behind him. Her sons. Alive. Kale stepped forward, but Elias caught his arm gently. "Slow," he murmured. "Let her see you." Saravel stopped breathing. For 1 second, the queen was not an empress, not a conqueror, not the terror of 7 border systems. She was a mother who had found her children breathing. Oren ran first. He crossed the snow barefoot before anyone could stop him. Saravel dropped to one knee and caught him in her arms so hard her armor rang. Kale followed with more control, but his face broke the moment his mother touched him. The guards lowered their rifles. Almost. Then Lord Varesh stepped from behind the queen. His armor was black beneath a white command cloak. His expression carried the calm of a man who had already written the ending. "My queen," he said, eyes fixed on Elias. The human is armed. Step away from the heirs. Saravel did not move. Oren buried his face into her neck and whispered something Elias could not hear. The queen's eyes changed. She looked past Elias, into the cabin. At the assassin bodies. At the Dominion weapons. At the royal command sigils burned into their armor. Varesh saw it too. And for the first time, his perfect calm cracked. Kale lifted his wristband with trembling hands. The hidden transmission replayed through the storm. Begin final phase. Blame the human. The voice was Varesh's. The entire landing zone went silent. Saravel slowly stood. Her sons stayed behind her. Explain, she said. Varesh looked at the guards, then at the sky, where the purge timer still counted down across every Dominion visor. 7 minutes. His answer was not a confession. It was an order. Protocol breach. The queen is emotionally compromised. Secure the heirs. Execute the human. Half the guards turned their rifles toward Saravel. The other half hesitated. That hesitation saved her life. Elias fired first. Not at a body. At the frozen branch above Varesh's front line. The shot snapped the heavy limb free. It crashed down between the queen and the traitors, throwing snow and chaos into the air. Cabin. Elias shouted. Saravel moved. She swept Kale and Oren behind her shield and ran for the doorway while pulse fire carved blue lines through the storm. Elias stepped beside her, firing short, controlled shots, not wasting a single round. The cabin became a war zone. Varesh's soldiers pushed through the snow in disciplined formation, but discipline meant nothing inside Elias Ward's world. He knew the angles. He knew the shadows. He knew which floorboards would hold and which would betray a boot. Saravel fought like a blade given a crown. Every movement was precise. Every strike was royal training sharpened by rage. She was power, speed, and command. Elias was something else. He was ugly survival. He kicked burning wood into enemy visors, dropped attackers through broken boards, used the cabin smoke to vanish from one corner and appear in another. When his rifle emptied, he used the stock. When the stock broke, he used a hunting knife. When the knife was knocked away, he used his hands. Varesh watched from the tree line, furious. The human was not supposed to matter. He was supposed to be a corpse with fingerprints on the crime. Instead, Elias had become the one variable Dominion strategy could not calculate. A man who had no empire to defend. Only a line he refused to let monsters cross. Varesh raised his pistol toward the cabin window. Inside, Oren stood frozen near the fireplace. The queen saw too late. Elias did not. He crossed the room and threw himself between the shot and the child. The blast hit his side and slammed him against the wall. Oren screamed. Saravel's fury broke free. She moved through the doorway like winter itself had chosen a queen. Varesh fired again, but she struck his arm aside and drove him into the snow. His command cloak tore beneath her gauntlet. You used my sons, she said. Varesh smiled through blood on his lip. I saved the Dominion from your weakness. Saravel leaned closer. No, she whispered. You showed me where the weakness was. Behind her, the final traitor soldiers lowered their weapons. The purge timer hit 2 minutes. But Varesh began laughing. You still lose, he said, looking up at the warships above the clouds. The fleet has the first report. Human abduction. Royal blood detected. If you do not confirm recovery before the timer ends, Earth burns. Saravel turned toward the sky. The fleet's weapons began to glow beyond the storm. Elias struggled to stand, one hand pressed against his wound. Kale and Oren rushed to him, holding him up as much as children could. The queen looked at the human who had bled for her sons. Then she looked at the empire waiting to destroy his world. For the first time in her reign, Queen Saravel did not ask what power demanded. She asked what truth required. And with 90 seconds left, she opened a live Imperial broadcast. Part 5. Legendary Payoff Ending. Every screen across the Vaya Dominion went black. Then Queen Saravel appeared. Not in her throne room, Not aboard a royal flagship. Not standing over a defeated enemy like her empire expected. She stood inside a ruined human cabin, with snow blowing through the shattered doorway, firelight flickering behind her, and her 2 sons alive at her side. For a moment, no one in the Dominion understood what they were seeing. The fleet commander above Earth received the broadcast first. His claw hovered over the Purge command. Around him, officers watched the timer fall. 60 seconds. 59. Saravel's voice cut through every warship, every council chamber, every colony relay. This is Queen Saravel of the Veya Dominion. Bloodline recovery protocol is suspended by royal command. The commander hesitated. Varesh, kneeling in the snow behind her, shouted through broken teeth, "She is compromised. Continue protocol." Saravel turned the broadcast lens toward him. Then toward the assassins lying outside the cabin. Then toward the command sigils on their armor. "Lord Varesh attacked my sons," she said. "He murdered their escort. He planted false evidence. He ordered the purge of a human settlement to hide his treason." Across the Dominion, the Empire went silent. The Queen then turned the lens toward Elias Ward. He was barely standing. Blood darkened his coat. One arm hung low. His face was pale from pain and cold, but he still stood between the children and the doorway, as if another enemy might come through it at any second. Saravel stared at him for a heartbeat too long. "This human found my sons in the storm," she said. "He carried them to shelter. He protected them from Dominion assassins. He bled for heirs who were not his blood, his species, or his responsibility." The fleet commander's hand slowly moved away from the purge command. 30 seconds. Then Oren stepped forward. Small, shaking, wrapped in the human's coat. He looked into the broadcast lens, and the whole empire saw a royal child who had no reason to lie. "He kept the monsters away," Oren said. "That sentence did what armies could not. It stopped the war." The purge timer froze at 12 seconds. Above the storm clouds, Dominion weapons powered down one by one. Their blue glow faded from the sky like dying stars. Inside the cabin, Elias finally let his rifle drop. Not because he trusted the Empire. Because the children were safe. Saravel ordered Varesh arrested. The traitor commander did not fight now. Men like him only understood power, and every weapon in orbit had just turned away from his command. But the Queen was not finished. She faced Elias. For the first time, the ruler of the Dominion looked at a human not as a threat, not as a primitive, not as a useful creature on the edge of her empire. She looked at him as the reason her sons were breathing. "You saved my bloodline," she said. "Name your reward." Elias gave a tired laugh, quiet and rough. "I don't want your throne money." "Then protection," Saravel said. "Land. Ships. A title. I can make your name known across every system." Elias looked down at Kale and Oren. Both boys were watching him like the answer mattered more than the battle. He crouched slowly despite the pain and pulled his coat tighter around Oren's shoulders. Then he looked back at the Queen. "Remember this," he said. "Humans don't kneel to empires. But we do stand between children and monsters." No one moved. Even the storm seemed to quiet for that line. Saravel had heard warriors boast before. She had heard kings threaten, commanders swear loyalty, prisoners beg, and traitors lie. But this was different. The human was not trying to sound powerful. That was what made him terrifying. He simply believed it. And the worst part for the Dominion was that every human watching would have understood him. Saravel lowered her head. Not fully. Not like a servant. Like a queen giving respect to someone no crown could command. Kale reached for Elias's hand. Oren leaned against his side again, already half asleep. Outside, the first light of morning began to break over the frozen forest. The warships withdrew from Earth's sky. The assassins were taken away. Varesh's name would be erased from every honor wall in the Empire by sunrise. But Elias Ward did not watch any of that. He sat beside the fire, wounded and exhausted, while 2 alien princes slept against him like they had never been afraid of humans at all. Queen Saravel stood near the doorway, looking at the man she had come to kill. She had crossed the stars for revenge. She had found something far more dangerous. A reason to trust humanity. And that night, the Dominion learned why humans were feared, not because they could destroy worlds, but because they would bleed for children who were never their own. And if one wounded human could make an empire lower its weapons, then the next story begins with the question every alien commander learned to fear. What happens when humanity stops protecting and finally starts answering back?